Welcome in the House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me as always is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. Gilbert, uh, we are in week 14 of the season, and you have the Rams in a divisional matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Um, I know I'm trying to come up with something to ask you here in terms of this matchup that would be interesting here as an intro, but I honestly, I guess the only thing I can think of is how much will the blowout from last year at in Arizona be on the minds of the Rams here as they take on this matchup here, and maybe that's something to kind of be a motivation after, or is it more of like, hey, let's get that taste out of our mouth after losing to the Panthers in Carolina?
Yeah, I think it's all the above, especially like when you're thinking like, yeah, we underestimated Carolina, we let one get away in Carolina. Then it's like, oh yeah, we also lost to the Cardinals. Like I feel like the Rams and the coaches are thinking that way. It's like happened against Carolina, happened last year in Arizona. We cannot let another game get away from us. So yeah, that's why I'm really expecting the Rams to take care of business because it's kind of rare when they lay an egg back to back games, and for them to let one go. Like the last time that they shot themselves in the foot this much was week 5 against the 49ers, and they won what 6 games in a row from there. So
Yep.
maybe something like that happens. I know you mentioned that it was maybe a good thing because they were starting to peak a little too early to regain another form where okay, maybe we're not a perfect team. Maybe we got to figure out things like, you know, the having the secondaries play like a ball hawk and make takeaways or force turnovers. It's not gonna happen every week. So they need to do some adjustments in the secondary. So I think a game like that, and I know after the loss on Sunday, I'm like, nope, that was a total disastrous performance, and I was very negative. But now after a couple of days to kind of process, I still think it's going to hurt them in the standings. It's going to come to bite them in the ass. They also have 2 tough games against the Lions and Seahawks. You lost a lot of your leeway here, and you rather this team lose to one of those 2 teams, to kind of get your one loss out the way. Hey, you never know. I know I was saying that last year the Lions were 15-2 to get the number 1 seed, but the year before that it was the 49ers and they lost 5 games. I think they were 12-5. So you never know what could happen here, but to me, it's definitely what you mentioned. Like they need to have a bunch of reminders. Like you cannot let up the way you did in Carolina and Arizona the year before that.
Yeah, especially going up against a divisional rival here. I know I would say, the Cardinals are like at the bottom of your divisional rival in terms of how you feel about them, but it's still a rival that, a divisional foe, I should say. And so you got to make sure you go in there with the right mentality. And, I know that this season has been kind of different for in a lot of ways around the league. And so you just don't want to be that team again that gets upset, especially with this big of a line. So, and you can't just apparently you can't say just go in there and take care of business, because this season it's been kind of hard to see it from everybody in around the league, Gilbert. But we have a great show for you guys here. Good. We're gonna preview this matchup between the Rams and the Cardinals. We have our latest news and notes, plus storylines for both teams going into this matchup. Lastly, we'll do our game predictions. But before we get to our game preview, Gilbert, do you have an engagement question for our viewers and listener?
Yeah, what are the keys to Rams' victory here? And I really think it's going to be on the secondary. I know our guy Jesse has been on me for criticizing, but this week I was the right one. Jesse is probably like, what the hell happened to the secondary? I've been hyping up here, but I think we're going to learn a lot from the secondary because the Cardinals are not good, but the quarterback play has been pretty good from Brissett. I know people don't really talk about this receiving core a lot, but they have Trey McBride, probably the best tight end in football right now. It's either him or Brock Bowers. And then they've just been very efficient with what they have. Marvin Harrison Jr. is their most talented wide receiver, but he's not their best receiver. It's been Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch who have been lining it up with Brissett. So yeah, the secondary got by playing ball hog, by creating takeaways. You can't play that way all the time. I know for some teams they're able to do it like every other week to have that many turnovers, but turnovers are hard to come by to force them at least. So you better play sound football. So I think to me, when that's their one strength right now for the Cardinals is a pretty good passing attack. They get hot in a hurry. I think it comes down to the secondary. So I'll answer the question here. But hey, if you have a different one, a different thing you want to see, like I know people like to harp on Sean McVay's game calling or play calling. Let me know in the comments if you think you want to see more of the Russian attack, the duo of Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. That's a good one too. But I'm gonna go back to the secondary here.
Yeah, I think for me is it's gonna be going back to the offensive side, limiting, just Matthew Stafford not throwing the ball away, limiting his turnovers. Hopefully, it was just a one game thing, and then running the ball, man. Like I've been saying, I really want to see this team get back to running the ball, especially if Kyron Williams is iffy this week. Uh, I want to see a little bit more from Blake Corum, and it was good to see Ronnie Rivers return some kicks. So I want to see what this running back room can do, especially if Kyron Williams isn't going to be 100% with that bum ankle. So yeah, something to kind of keep an eye for as a key for this game, Gilbert. But let's get to Rams news and notes. There's not a lot going on, Gilbert. And this will tell you just off the top. The Rams signed kicker Joshua Carty to the practice squad after he was waived by the team last week. It was kind of a numbers crunch there, and so they were able to get him back on the team there on the practice squad, so he can continue to uh, be with the team. And I at this point, I think they've kind of moved on. It's going to be Mevis going forward, and in the off season they'll see where they're at with Joshua Carty.
Yeah, they've been clicking on special teams. Their decisions have paid off, but after a while, you can't keep two kickers that long. Like I knew it was going to happen eventually. It's just like what are you so worried about? Someone's going to take Cardi off on waivers. Maybe they can, and then or maybe he's already went through waivers. I forget when that happened. Um, but I'm sure the 49ers are content with what they have. The Seahawks have Jason Myers. They're fine. Like I don't think a rival is going to take them. So
No, they
uh
didn't. He cleared waivers
yeah, so
himself.
I didn't understand why they didn't just do that before. So maybe he's gonna be on the practice squad. I don't get what the fear was to begin with. Showing that you used a draft pick on a kicker and then you're waving him, it was hard to swallow that. I never understood having. I never like when teams keep two kickers on a 53-man roster. But also injuries started happening, and I know for this team was healthy before that, and then they started kind of picking up the last 2 weeks, and they had to put people on IR. Uh, yeah, and you need guys that come up from different positions. So, but overall, yeah, you're fine with Mavis. Cut ties. It is what it is. Maybe Cardi comes back to haunt you in a different game. I know Jake Moody got a different chance. I forget where he is now. He went from
He's
Washington.
with Washington. It's been like they traded places. It's
Yeah,
Gage is now with the 49ers, and
that's right.
Moody is with the Commanders.
Yeah, so the shuffling happens all the time, and it's all about what they could do for you now. That's unfortunate part of the kicking game. It's a mental thing. It's hard to it's a numbers thing. It's hard to keep somebody on a roster when they're not producing. So, yeah, it was the right call.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I just don't. I get it having an extra kicker, especially on a rookie contract, but I don't think that even means anything either. So you can find kickers now and develop them, and maybe that's what they want to do. Maybe it's something going on upstairs with mentally, and they think they can figure it out, and maybe he comes back next year and he's their kicker again. So just I at this point you moved on and you have a guy that you're gonna go with going forward. In terms of the injuries, Gilbert, Rams, Kyron Williams, Cam Kitchens, and Omar Spades were all limited today in practice. Devontae Adams Darius William and Puna Ford didn't practice, but Sean McVay did tell reporters he expect all six of them to play against Arizona. It just as you get later on in the season, you cover this team. You were the B reporter. You know that you're just going to see a bunch of dudes miss practice on Wednesday, but they're and miss a couple of practice here and there, but they're going to be ready to go on Sundays. That's pretty much what's going on here, right?
Yeah, and usually Sean McVay, when he tells you, "I expect these guys to play," he's pretty straight up with it. When he doesn't know much what to share, that's when there's pretty concern. Like, yeah, I don't know, we have to see, or he wants to kind of just brush it off. That's when you know it's not a good sign. But when he just because he's such a he's a very eager guy and he's a very energetic guy, and he's like, "These guys are coming back. They're gonna play. They're fine. They're good." And like he likes to kind of just share that, and maybe other coaches don't like to do that, and maybe it could be a flaw or I don't know. I don't think it really matters that much, especially when you have to have injury reports. Transparency is big now because of the NFL or the betting market. Things like that. It's like people want you to deliver the news, and I know I was dropping hints about maybe Trey Lance playing for Herbert because at least a quarterback, people are more they're more secretive about that because it's a big advantage. I could see that one, but stuff like this is it's not a big deal. So I'm okay with Sean McVay, showing his hand when it comes to injuries, especially this early. And as a beat reporter, as a fantasy football player, as a bettor, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and at least I kind of say you up there, Gilbert, because the next story we're going to talk about is actually pretty interesting, and I know you're going to have a lot. You're probably going to take a victory lap here, and rightfully you should. So, um, Adam Grossbart of your former colleague at what is it now, the Southern California News Corporation,
Group,
or is that right?
yeah, but you
Or
can say Orange County Register.
Orange County Register, Adam Grossbar. He asked Sean McVay if there's a possibility that Rams wide receiver Tutu Atwell isn't activated off of IR at the end of the 20-day window. He replied, "We haven't gone down that road yet, but there are a number of things like we've talked about. It's just been a unique set of circumstances." End of quote. And then I saw our good friend uh, Gary Klein also write a story about why they're not playing Tutu Atwell. He practiced all of last week. They did not activate him. And so, first, I'm going to let you take your victory lap here with Tutu Atwell, but what does this tell you with the fact that they're not activating Tutu Atwell? Is it because they're content with running their system in terms of 13, 12, and 11 personnel, or there's just no room for him right now on the roster?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought we're not gonna have a good topic to talk about, but this one actually I want to get into, and I started thinking too. I'm like, I get people are giving me crap about Tutu getting that game-winning touchdown in week 3, but like that's just what he does. He makes one play and then he gets forgotten for 3 months, 4 months. Like he's just not consistent. When you're a second round pick and you're getting starting snaps and you can make more of an impact, like I get it. The deep bombs are always like they're memorable things that you remember in your brain. Like there was a season, I think the season that I covered them, he averaged like 40 yards per reception, but he had 4 catches all year. Like it's just what he does. He's like he has bombs or a clutch play every now and then. He's just not consistent. You can't rely on guys like that. And people always tell me, watch out for Tutu, watch out for Tutu. One for the big plays and one for his draft status. People want him to be a thing, but he's not going to be a thing, at least not here. Um, so yeah, he got his game-winning play, and that credit to him. And I had to, kind of eat crow for a bit, but like I was still right. Like he's just inconsistent. And going back to this whole thing about why he got $10 million and why he got a starting spot on this team, I think it goes back to Sean McVay's. I don't know if it's stubbornness or being hesitant. He's just very hard headed or difficult to go away from the 11 personnel. And I could tell with the moves they made in the offseason, they wanted to explore more. It takes him a lot to leave something. And I've said this before. Why leave something that's been so successful? The 11 personnel has kind of been like, I don't know, the West Coast offense for so many years. It's just always gonna be a thing. Like it's gonna find like
Yeah.
even today's football, just little wrinkles of it. You just kind of to change the terminology, or you kind of play a different style. But like it's like, yeah, West Coast football is gonna be the thing here, and it's like for him it was 11 personnel, and I get it. Everybody copied it. Everybody had three wide receivers, and to this day, it's still probably the most used personnel out there for or formation for the offense. And but he drafted Ferguson for a reason. He was in the mix for Brock Bowers last year. They kept trying to trade up. He knew where the game was going, but he still didn't know how to get himself there. I think that's why Tutu Atwell came back because when you have 11 personnel, you need a burner. You need to stretch the field guy. And that was always his benefit. He had the skill set that they were looking for. They've tried to get it with other people. For whatever reason, the Rams can't really find a burner. They're good at finding the guys who are very versatile, the guys who like to do the dirty work. They're not speedy, but they know how to just make plays. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams doesn't really count because that they just kind of brought him in at the end of his career. He's not a burner either, but he's more of a downfield threat. He has a big catch radius. But even guys like that, big body guys who have kind of 50-50 balls. They haven't done well with that. They tried, I'm not saying Allen Robinson is that guy. They tried bringing him in, it didn't work. OBJ was not a typical burner, but he was more of a slant guy, middle of the field guy, just moves the chains. And I think that's what they excel at. The Rams do, but they needed a vertical threat to open up other guys, and that's everybody does it in football. It's one of these things where like you got to have a swing tackle, you got to have a burner. You got to have a guy who could play safety and corner. These are how roles get made in the NFL. If you could do something like that, you're gonna have a long career. Like there's guys, old linemen that I'm like, how's that guy still playing?
Yeah.
He's a swing tackle, or he could play inside outside. Like you just create roles for yourself. And I think Tutu Atwell has done that to an extent. But now that McVay is not scared to try other things, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, heavier run game with the gap scheme, you don't need Tutu Atwell. And I think where maybe he's not practicing the way they want him to. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but now it's like, honestly, dude, you haven't been consistent. Why did we pay you again? Now you have the freedom to go away from that because you don't need his skill set because you're playing jumbo package, you're playing three tight ends. So to me, this is probably the end. Like you got the 1 year contract, you got your money, time to move on. Sean McVay now knows life is okay when you're not playing three wide receivers.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is you he's kind of expendable because of everything you just said, but there's one more thing. And you hit it on the head. He only does one thing. If you can only do one thing, you're not going to be worth having on the roster. And that brings me to Xavier Smith. He caught a long pass against the
Oh
Panthers in
yeah,
that game,
yeah.
and he can return kicks, and he can play special teams. If Tutu Atwell can do those things, I'd rather have Xavier Smith out there than having Tutu Atwell out there. So when I saw this and I saw Gary Klein write about it, I saw Adam Grossberg ask McVay about Tutu Atwell and the fact that oh, they didn't activate him. That pretty much told me everything I needed to know. And like you said, you did a great job there of kind of breaking down the reasons why. But I think at the end of the day, too, is like when you can only do one thing, you're not worth having a roster spot. And so having someone like Xavier Smith on a cheaper contract, on a minimum, being able to do multiple things, he's worth more to this team than Tutu Atwell. And sometimes I know it sucks, but that's the profession of whatever, whether it's baseball, football, hockey. If you get injured, you're not supposed to lose your job, but unfortunately for him, it sounds like him getting injured probably lost him his job to Xavier Smith, and I don't think we might see him just because I don't, I just with the Rams, if they're done with you, as we saw with Joshua Carty, they're gonna move on. Like they'll eat it, they'll eat the 10 whatever is left at this point. Maybe there's 5 million left for the rest of the season on his contract. They'll just eat it and move on.
Yeah, usually I'm with you saying like, yeah, we're never going to see this person again. The Rams are going to move on. But the one time it didn't happen was Cam Akers. He wanted to trade, they let him shop around, and then he came back and actually played well to end the season. So
Yeah,
never say
true.
never, but it's not looking good for Tutu out one, especially when they have enough tight ends, they have enough wide receivers, they have 2 running backs now. So
Yeah.
unless injuries keep happening or something, maybe he'll bring them back, but right now he's not needed.
Before we move on to the Cardinals in terms of storylines, because there's not a lot to talk about in terms of the Rams. We've kind of talked about the disappointing loss against the Panthers. So I this was like the one topic I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of a storyline here for the Rams. I did want to add a comment here from TBD. He said, "Good evening, gentlemen. Taking the Cardinals and the points,
Wow.
and we'll beat the Rams. Believe Stafford will revert back to his normal turnover prone self." And then he also said, "I would have signed Jason Tucker and don't care about his
Wow.
past." So,
Yeah.
uh,
This is somebody who's frustrated with the loss there and
yeah,
doesn't want to, I guess, have a cooler head. But I get what this person is talking about because it's gonna haunt them. I really do think this loss is
yeah.
gonna get them, and I think this is why this person's frustrated.
Yeah, and I get the frustration, especially when you really needed a win against the Panthers. But let's talk about the Cardinals. Just to let everybody know up front, Gilbert won't be here for the next Cardinals game later in the season because it'll be Week 18. He's gonna take a well-deserved vacation, so we won't have Gilbert for that week. So I kind of want to talk about here and kind of empty your notebook here in terms of the Cardinals, Gilbert. I'll wherever you want to start, whether it's do we see Jonathan Gannon get fired? Does where have things gone wrong with the Jonathan Gannon administration, and where do they go with the GM here? And if you want to spend the next 5 minutes just kind of thrashing a team that you thought was going to win the
Yeah.
NFC West, go ahead. So the floor is yours here, Gilbert.
Yeah, I can't take a full victory lap because I was wrong about the Cardinals, but right about 2-2. So I'll stop taking the lap here because I was so wrong on this team. And the thing about Gannon is like, okay, he had it's kind of like Dave Canales with the Panthers, a really crappy franchise to try to build up, and it's going to take some time. And he went from 4 wins to I think like 7 or 8 wins. 8 wins. He doubled it, and I'm like, okay, he's in the right path here. Like it's now year 3, a critical year. Uh, you got to do what Canales is doing right now. Like this is his. I want to say this is his second year, Canales. So yeah, so he's a year ahead. He beat the Rams. He beat the Packers. Maybe they don't make the playoffs, but they're showing progress in year 2. Uh, for him, he doesn't have the the long leash because he's not a big name. Like say this is Jim Harbaugh and struggling with the Chargers, he's gonna get 5 years probably, regardless of what happens. Like he was not that. Jonathan Gannon was the last choice of that 2023, I think, off season.
And
It
he
was a
cost them a draft pick
yeah, they
because
were
of the whole
tampering.
situation, and
It
then
got
the hundred
messy.
thousand dollar fine too, Gilbert. I just wanted to ask that. Sorry
Yeah.
to.
It got really messy. He was the last choice. They ended up waiting for him because they went to the Super Bowl. Everybody else already got their coach, and it's like, who wants to go to Arizona right now? But to me, with all that, like he was like doing well for the first 2 years. Like you have a crappy franchise, and you're getting positive results. And I really like the defense. They spent money on the defense. And I like their draft pick, Walter Nolan the third. I think it's going to be a good pick. He's been creating a lot of impactful plays out there on the field. But the bad thing, he missed like 8 or 9 games with a foot injury. It took him a while. When I went to go visit him in the summer, like this guy is winning his matchups. Like he's out there moving the pocket. Like I'm like, okay, I want to watch him play, and he's like was nowhere to be found until I think that Cowboys game when the Cardinals beat the Cowboys, which is surprising. Now that was his first game. He was already impactful right away. I think he forced that fumble on Trevor Lawrence a couple weeks ago. So watch out for him in that front there for Walter Nolan. He was a first round pick there. And then they got Josh Sweat, who's actually playing really well.
Yeah, I think
So
he's got 9 or 10 sacks.
let's say 10. And then Calais
Yeah.
Campbell, the ageless wonder, also been helping out that front. They have a good front. The secondary and Will Johnson seems to be a good pick, but he's been hurt. That's the problem with that.
The whole secondary just got decimated with
Yeah.
injuries.
So that did not go well for Jonathan Gannon. And then like this is gonna be the what we're gonna remember from the Gannon thing. What really doomed him. He never stepped in to take charge of the offense. And when the defense was playing well, and I'm like, man, this guy he coach defense. I just gotta when you're a head coach, you better be a CEO type and figure out everything. He will not step in when Kyler Murray was struggling. We saw how bad he was last year. He was bad to start, this year too, and they just didn't want to do anything until he got hurt, and they finally found an opening. And but it's just too late. Um, you know, the whole thing about not getting Marvin Harrison Jr. to produce right away when he was supposed to be a sure thing here, and he's still not really that good. 2 years into it, pretty much now. His dad is being outspoken now, saying, I hate watching this team here." That's on the coaching staff, but you know, they were just too late. Brissett, maybe from the start of the season, could have offered so much more for this offense here. So it was on Gannon not stepping in. And then he crossed the line with the whole DeMarcado thing where he lost his cool. He shoved them multiple times. You don't do that. You lost to the Tennessee Titans. So, yeah, a superstar quarterback, supposedly, because they paid him like one, that you couldn't unlock. You took forever to react. Your defense got decimated with injuries now. Your one strength, and that's not even coming through. The Ryan's on the wall. He's going to get fired here. This was made up for a year to at least make the wild card. They're going to be a top 5 draft pick team again.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, Gilbert, is that you're a defensive guy, right? Like I'm talking about Jonathan Gannon, and your defense is ranked, has never been ranked in the top 10 while you've been there. Like, that's part of the issue. If you're known as a defensive guy, your defense at least has to be good. You see D'Amico Ryans, like that's why he's still the head coach of the Texans. And of course, it helps that he has CJ Stroud and all that, but his defenses are really good. You look at someone like Robert Sala, who wasn't able to do well in New York. You don't get a lot of years. The fact that as a defensive guy, he got 3 years. At least he got a better chance than most defensive coaches do. Like, you look at Raheem Morris, he's probably out after two
Yeah.
years because you know if you're known as a defensive guy and your defenses aren't worth a lick, then what's the reason you're there? And so that's part of the issue there. And as you talked about too, like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I didn't realize that James Conner was such a big uh you know guy that they lost. Like, they haven't been the same since James Conner, but he wasn't playing well at the beginning of the season before he was lost for the year. So it's just been a really bad situation. I guess my question going forward here is, do they keep the GM and let the GM pick the coach, or do you think they just clean house just because it's an organization that is really cheap and they don't want to pay, they're not going to want to pay a new coach and a new GM, so they might just keep the GM around and let him pick the coach. So what do you
Yeah.
think happens here?
I definitely could see the GM sticking around. Monty Ossenfort. He came from New England. He knows how to. He's a winning background. He knows how to operate, and but also, like you're right, Cardinals don't like to pay. They're cheap, and these are the teams that are just kind of under the radar teams. They like to kind of just prolong these decision makers because they can't afford to keep them on the books here. So I think he'll stick around, but I'm like, I guess he got the Walter Nolan pick, right? But like he hasn't played that much. Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't panned out, but that's not on him. That's the coaching staff to bring out the best in him. But Will Johnson, people didn't want to take a chance on him, but there's a reason why can't stay healthy and he's not healthy. So
Yeah.
what does a GM really have that kind of says this is what we need? But I think it's what you said. It's the Cardinals are just make kind of conservative decisions like this. They need a change. They're not gonna fully clean house here. Uh, and GMs to an extent tend to get like 4 or 5 years. The coaches don't get that long of a leash here. I always think teams should be aligned with their GMs and their coaches and kind of be on the same timeline. But it happens a lot where they, they're kind of forced with these kind of arranged marriages here sometimes. So, but hey, Ossenford get a chance to pick his next coach here. I think he's going to stick around, but I can't tell what he's done right. He did, shell out money for Josh Sweat and brought him on, and which I don't think that's really a wasn't that hard of a decision. I always thought Josh Sweat was an underrated edge rusher. He was probably the best edge rusher on a really good team for a long time with the Eagles. So I'm trying to find something where it was a savvy thing where it worked out, but like his two guys this year have been hurt most of the year.
Yeah, and then the fact that you man, this is where I kind of want to take a victory lap, but at the same time, I'm just like I mean, I get it. They drafted Paris. Is it Paris Johnson
Yeah,
Jr.?
that was a good one. He's good.
Right, but
Yeah.
you gave away. In trading down, Will Anderson Jr. was the pick there,
Yeah,
and
that's a
you
good
could have
point.
had like an all-world defensive end there, and that was my biggest issue. Is like, why are you like if you're gonna trade down and you're gonna pick up a bunch of draft picks, don't trade, and don't give up there for a generational player in Will Anderson Jr. And so that was my biggest issue with that trade. But I guess I can give them credit with the fact that they got Paris Johnson Jr. out of it, and they picked up extra picks. So that was another thing. But you're
But
right.
to
I
your
mean,
point,
that's
that extra pick that they got, they didn't do anything. It was an edge rusher named Darius Robinson. He hasn't done anything.
Missouri.
Yeah,
Yeah,
done nothing.
yeah. And you could have had Will Anderson Jr. instead, and he would have been a catalyst on your, you pair him up with Josh Sweat coming in this year, like, and it's just like that's the risk you take sometimes trading out and trying to get a bunch of picks. And so I get it, but you have to hit. That's on your resume as a GM. You get paid for those decisions, and so when you see someone like Will Anderson Jr., being able to do what he's doing now, it looks bad on you as an organization. We've seen guys get fired because of what other teams like the Panthers fire their coach because they drafted, you know, uh, the wrong quarterback instead of CJ Stroud, instead of, Bryce Young. So those kind of things are gonna end up, but it's because it's the Cardinals. You're right. They're just probably gonna keep the GM around. They'll fire Jonathan Gannon, and I think the other shoe that's gonna fall is Kyler Murray's gonna get traded this offseason.
Yep.
I thought they would give him another year just because it's a lot of money to eat, but I think the writing's on the wall now.
Yeah, so that's another thing. This is gonna be a really unattractive job. You're gonna, say you're the coach and you know that the Kai Murray is not that good. He's probably gonna be on the move. And then you're looking at the draft class if you care about stuff like that, like, oh, it's not that good. That means Jacoby Brissett is gonna be your guy for another year. And he's a good quarterback, but we know eventually, Brissett's not gonna win a lot of games. And when you're a coach, the the time is now to win. They don't give you a lot of leeway here. So who's gonna want that job knowing that Brissett's gonna be your starting quarterback in 26 probably?
Yeah, they have a lot of work to do there in Arizona, and it wasn't long ago that they won the division. Yeah, they won the division, and everything's been down. Kind of gone
Yeah.
down the tube. I think they won more than 10 games, and now it's they made the coaching change, and now they're kind of having to rebuild again, Gilbert. So we'll see what happens here with the Cardinals going forward. All right, Gilbert. The Rams are 8-point favorites here. Actually, let me get to this comment here from Master Lex 34. He says, late to the show, haven't watched anything since the horrid loss. Cardinals to me were always the trap game. Hope the trap is past now, and now the Rams return to form. And
Yeah.
I never thought this was going to be a trap game. It's always a game on the East Coast, especially when you've been winning. And so Yeah, I just, especially too, like we brought up at the beginning of the show, this is a team that blew you out in Arizona last year. I think they're looking for revenge. So I never saw this game as a trap game, but hey, you never know. The trap games come when you least expect it.
Yeah, this team caught them last year, and it was early in the season, but now it's late in the year. This team is trying to go to Cancun. Uh, they're just out of it. They don't have a lot of healthy bodies out there. So, and the Rams just came off a loss. Like it just, I don't think it's going to be a trap game here.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Gilbert, the Rams are 8-point favorites. The over under is 47.5. What's the right side of this line?
Yeah, I hate lines this big, but like I just mentioned, I think the Rams are going to return the form. I think they're going to beat up on this team, and you know, I know the Cardinals took the Jaguars to overtime not that long ago. The Cardinals traded pretty badly against the Buccaneers at the end. Like they were game for that game, but I think they lost by like 11. I lost track, but so I think the Rams are in better shape than the Buccaneers and the Jaguars. So to me, I think they can win this game by 10 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be kind of like what we saw when they went to Europe. They're going to just come out and put this game away by the first quarter, or even the against the Buccaneers. Like I
Yeah,
said, they have the motivation. They have two things working for them here, Gilbert. They lost to the Panthers, or coming off of that loss, and then they also got blown out in Arizona last year. So there's double the motivation there to make sure that they return the favor. And I'll bring it back here as well, talking about here with the spread. Eric Williams, who we had on yesterday, make sure you go and check out that interview. Um, he said, like, he made a great point. Like, the thing with Sean McVay is he has his team well prepared. They usually don't get blown out. The last time I can think of that they got blown out was that Cardinals game. Maybe I'm forgetting, and that was early in the season. Since then, they've kind of, they've been in log ever since that was a 1-4 start. So
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
I think they're gonna try to return the favor here.
And I forgot that actually the Cardinals did keep it close. They lost only by 3 against Tampa Bay. They got a late touchdown from McBride, got a big stop from their defense, and then they went 3 and out right away on the game potential game winning drive. I remember I was watching that. They had like 2 minutes to go to have like
Oh
to get
yeah,
a
I
field goal.
remember.
They went 4 and out because they got the fourth down. I'm like, what the hell was that? And because I picked the Cardinals, I remember because I was forced into a lone wolf pick, and I'm like, what
Yeah.
the hell? So yeah, but they kept it close to their credit.
Yeah, I remember they got the ball like at the 10-yard line,
Yeah,
and they didn't do anything. They went for it. They went for it out there because they went for it on fourth down.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's rare when you see that one. Like usually, like defenses are on their heels. They panic, they press, and like they'll give up at least one first down. No, the Cardinals couldn't even do that.
The guy that is gonna scare me in this game is Trick McBride. I just feel
Yeah,
like he's gonna have a big game against the Rams here. But I just feel like it just I you know, usually I'm right in terms of the blowouts or a close game here. I just don't see this being even close. Gilbert, usually I'll tell you, hey, I have a bad feeling about this game. With this one, I just don't. Like I said, it's just like you said, they're already looking forward to Cancun. So with that, give us your game prediction. We'll end it here, Gilbert.
yeah. I think the Rams go back to getting 30 points here. I know it's still a talented defense, but a banged up one. So I'll say like I don't know, 30-17, something like that. Big bounce back game for the Rams here, and they need a big bounce back game because like it's kind of wild to think it's already pretty much here. This 2 game stretch against Detroit, you get them at home, then you go to Seattle on a short break for Thursday Night Football. So like, don't mess around here. You got 2 big time games coming up. Go beat up this team and get back on track, and then we're gonna get those 2 really good games, which I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah. I was gonna say I just don't want to see if they're up by 20, maybe even more. Don't have Matthew Stafford out there in the fourth quarter. There's no reason to. So I could see McVay trying to make sure that he gets the stats up for Matthew Stafford and get him back into uh the MVP conversation. So and it's not a game that a lot of people are going to be tuned in to watch nationally. So, you want to make sure you put those stats up there for Stafford and his MVP campaign. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be somewhere like 35-20, something like that, where they just take they go in there and like I said, they take care of business and you get out of there. You just, don't want the same thing that happened against the Panthers or it's close and then you give the game away. So, make sure that you get up on them in the first half and that way you can get ready for those two big games coming up, Gilbert.
Yep, and hopefully we'll get some more livelier crowds then. I know the
Yeah, I
two big
know.
games. It's a dead, sleepy game.
Yep.
The Rams are coming off a loss, so people are trying to like wait and see. So I get it. But
Yeah.
shout out to the people who are on here watching, and if you watch the replay, don't be shy and drop a comment.
Yeah, they usually do, and it's been great seeing everybody. They're really excited about the Rams, and rightfully so. I know that was a big loss, frustrating loss last week, but shout out to DBD and then Master Lex here for being on here with the comments. But like I said, I wanted to get your opinion, your thoughts on the Cardinals. We got into a little bit of a 2-2 here, but now week 14, time to take care of business for the Rams, get another dub and continue to stay atop the uh, NFC West standings. So maybe they can get a favor from Raheem Morris and actually do something for once and beat the Seahawks, but I doubt it.
And
But
I don't know. You rather have the better draft pick, but who knows?
yeah, that's true.
That's a tough one right there, actually.
That should have been our engagement. Do you want the Falcons to beat the Seahawks, or do you want a better draft pick at the end of the year? Let us know.
Yeah, or maybe get a tie here. A tie could hurt the Seahawks, but the tie
That's
doesn't
true.
really improve their standing. I don't know, but that's a tricky one. So,
All
uh,
right, Gilbert, get us out of here and get it. That is it for as we get ready and prepare for Week 14.
yeah, let's get out of here on the week 14, down the home stretch here, the final stretch here. So, handle business. Again, don't be shy. Drop comments, or we'll check them out. Victor is very quick to respond. So, let's get out of here. On that note, ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.